Welcome to ABC Interactive English. Hi, everyone. I'm Mike.
Hello, I'm Rainbow.
And we are back with part 2. That's right, it's day 2, part 2 of The Dog and the Shadow and the Bone.
Ooh.
The tasty, delicious bone.
You know what? It's very strange. When this dog sees this other dog with a bone.
The reflection in the water of himself.
And he thinks it's another dog, right? So this is kind of a strange situation where a few different options could happen. Is he going to fight that dog? Is he going to try to steal the bone? What could possibly happen?
Do you think he might just jump in the river?
Yeah, I think so.
Jump in the water
I think
to
so.
attack?
Yeah, I feel like there's an enemy coming on.
Yeah, well, it definitely seems like this dog is being a little bit greedy here, right?
Oh, okay.
He's got the bone. He's hurrying home. He can just leave this other dog there and go home and just enjoy his snack. But he didn't like that dog, the reflection of his own face, but he thinks it's another dog. He didn't like that dog looking at him. He might get angry. He might even try to steal the other dog's bone without remembering he already has a delicious bone.
Oh, that's terrible.
You know what I mean?
That's terrible.
One time when I was a kid, I was at this like a charity sale, and they were selling some sports equipment, and I really wanted it. It was like a baseball glove or something. And so I was trying to bid, I was trying to get it. I was, offering money, and there was someone else in the crowd offering money for the same thing. And I kept trying, and I kept going higher. $1, $2, $5. And finally I won it, and I realized my dad was the other person trying to buy the thing. And so I just spent more money because I didn't realize I already had that thing. So sometimes when you get greedy about things, you forget about what you already have because you're so focused on getting that new thing, like the new bone that the water dog has.
Ooh.
I'm not sure that's what's gonna happen here, but I'm afraid our dog might end up in trouble of his own making. Let's find out.
Let's find
in
out.
The Dog and the Shadow, part 2. Woof woof.
The dog also saw that the other dog had a bone. It was much bigger than his and looked like a great prize, so the dog desired it for himself. The dog made up his mind. He would attack the other dog and take his bone. Then he would have 2 big bones to enjoy.
All right, so we've got the dog and the shadow part 2. We have this dog and his bone and a very narrow bridge and another dog who appears to also have a bone.
That's right. Our dog, the real dog, is on the bridge looking down into the water, and he sees another dog in the water. It's just his reflection, like the water is a mirror. But our dog, he doesn't know this. It says, as we get back to the story, the dog also saw, that's the dog on the bridge, also saw that the other dog had a bone. He's got a bone too, just like mine. But there was something strange. It, the other bone, was much bigger than his and looked like a great prize. Probably also looked more delicious. So the dog on the bridge, desired it for himself. I want me that bone, is what he was thinking.
Yes, and that verb desire means to want something a lot, like deep within your heart, If you want something, it's kind of like maybe on the surface. If you desire something, it's like from inside of you. You really, really, really want it. So if he desired it, he was gonna be sure that he was gonna have it because he wanted it so much inside of his heart, and he was super greedy.
We should be careful to warn people. Desire is one of those kind of special words. We don't use it in daily conversation too much, right? You wouldn't go to the restaurant and say, oh, I desire a cheeseburger and some French fries. It's a little too fancy for that. But if you're writing or in poetry or songs, It's a very good word to mean really want something a lot.
Yeah.
Back to the story.
The dog made up his mind. He would attack the other dog and take his bone. Was he gonna jump in the water like we said?
This is not gonna go well for this dog.
He was so sure about it.
But he is going to do it because he made up his mind. When you make up your mind, it's kind of like deciding.
Yeah.
If you make a decision, if you have a choice and you're like, okay, that one. You have made up your mind. You are not considering or thinking or weighing your choices. You've decided, you've made your choice, you've made your selection. And this phrase often gives us the idea that I am very sure about this. It's not like, okay, I'll have that. It's, I want that one. I am certain 100%. I have made up my mind. No more thinking anymore. I know what I'm going to do. So he's made up his mind. He is going to attack the other dog and take his bigger, more delicious looking bone. Why? Well, the story explains. Then he would have 2 big bones to enjoy.
Little did he know.
As long as he can A, fight off the other dog and steal his bone. And also, it's important if the bone and the other dog are actually real, but they're not. They're just reflections of himself. As I said, this is not going to end well for our little doggy friend.
He's going to lose it.
No, we're going to take a break and then we'll be back.
Without a pause, the dog dropped his bone and jumped at the other dog. Soon he found himself in the river. It was pulling him down and away from the bridge.
Okay, so we've got this very greedy dog, and for some reason, of course, that bone looks bigger on the other dog than he realizes is in his mouth,
yeah,
right?
it could be the water just sort of stretching and making the bone bigger.
Yeah, he was sure that it was bigger and looked tastier.
But sometimes when you're greedy, your mind just makes
you just
the
think
other
whatever that
person's
person has is
bigger
better.
Or better. Like whenever I'm hungry and I get the food at the restaurant, I always look at my wife's food and I go,
it looks
they
better.
gave her more than they gave me and I'm a much bigger. Yeah, but no, it's usually about the same. It's just your greedy mind is giving you more reason, to want that thing. Because it's so much
changes
bigger.
Your brain.
Yeah, it's bigger and better. That's why I want it.
And I don't have it.
Not because I'm greedy. So yes, definitely this bone is looking more delicious than the bone in the dog's mouth. And maybe in the same way, the other dog looks smaller and weaker than the dog on the bridge. He's like, I can beat him up and I can steal his big juicy bone. That's why he made up his mind to fight that dog and steal the bone. So what does he do? Well, he kind of does that. It says, without a pause, the dog dropped his bone and jumped at the other dog.
You jumped into the river?
Well, I guess that's where he has to jump.
Oh, goodness.
And it might be where he jumped because he did this thing. He decided to jump and fight and do this without a pause. And a pause is like a short rest or a stop in the action, right? Sometimes when you're watching a video, there's actually a button that you can press. It's called the pause button. It won't stop the video and go right back to the beginning. It'll just stop it right in the middle where you are, and then you'll come back after 5 minutes and restart or start the video again. In the same way, if you're doing something with a group of people and someone says, all right, why don't we pause here for 10 minutes so everyone can go to the bathroom or get some coffee or have a snack. You have the idea that you will get back to your work, you will get back into action after a short period of rest, a short stopping time. So without a pause means he just did it right away.
Immediately.
He didn't stand there and think and consider and judge and measure. No, he just jumped in the river.
Yep, and extremely bad because what he did was he dropped the bone that was in his mouth. You know, he wanted that other bone, but he lost the one he originally had. To drop something means to let it fall onto the floor, onto the ground. Boom! It dropped. So with the sound of gravity, it dropped on the floor and it's not coming back. So something that can drop from high above and then down below, maybe you drop some eggs. I did this experiment when I was in school and we had this carton and we had to wrap it up and then we had to test if it would really break when it fell. So it was kind of a science experiment and I think I was like, we were one of the only groups that made it, and after the drop, all the other people's eggs just like went like crazy and then it just spilled everywhere. But you know, our eggs survived the drop of 2 stories. So 2 floors of dropping down on the floor. So whatever you're dropping is gonna make some action and make some noise and you're just gonna lose it. So that's what happens when he dropped that bone. He lost it. And what he did was he went straight at the other dog and he basically just jumped right into the river.
Exactly. Maybe he dropped the bone on the bridge so he can come back, but if he was looking over into the river, he might have dropped the bone into the water. And so that will be much harder to get back later, but that's okay. Because he's going to fight that dog and steal his bigger bone, right? That's the plan.
So he's jumping at him.
And so, of course, to do that, to fight the other dog, he has to get over there and he decides to jump at the other dog, or probably in the real world, jump into the river. When you jump, basically, you're using your body, your muscles or something to push yourself off the ground, to be in the air for a short period of time, and then eventually you will come back down. You are not flying, you are not controlling yourself.
Not running.
You can't go higher or anything like that in the air. And generally, if you jump, you are using 2 legs to push yourself off of the ground. If we use 1 leg, we might say the word hop or something like that, but to jump is generally with 2 legs. If you've played many sports like volleyball or basketball, jumping is a big part of those sports. And of course, if you want to get over something that's too hard to climb, or maybe cross a narrow space, you might jump from one side to the other. Just make sure you're strong enough to make it all the way. So here he is. He's gonna get that bone. Forget about my old bone. I'm jumping over there. I'm gonna fight that dog and get my bone.
Oh no.
And that's exactly what happens, right?
Soon he found himself in the river because obviously he jumped. It was pulling him down and away from the bridge.
Oh, that's really bad.
So he's gonna lose everything. He doesn't have the bone. He's probably in the river, maybe in some kind of danger, and he's getting wet.
Yeah, he could lose his life.
He could.
Never mind the bone. He could drown in that river. So
I don't know if he's gonna recover or not.
At this point, he might be thinking this was a bad idea.
I hope so.
He's definitely thinking, huh? Where did that other dog go? And why am I all wet?
And where's the bone?
And where's my bone? Exactly right. So this is not a great plan. And we're assuming, we guess, that the dog knows it. The only big question is now, can the dog save himself?
Yeah.
Never mind the bone, but save his own life. Well, you guys will have to come back and join us tomorrow for the final part of the story of the dog and the shadow, and probably not the bone.
No more bone.
The dog also saw that the other dog had a bone. It was much bigger than his and looked like a great prize. So the dog desired it for himself. The dog made up his mind. He would attack the other dog and take his bone. Then he would have 2 big bones to enjoy. Without a pause, the dog dropped his bone and jumped at the other dog. Soon he found himself in the river. It was pulling him down and away from the bridge.
Hi, I'm Tina. 我们来看这一课的重点单字。第一个 desire，
desire 动词渴望渴求 Susan desires to travel around the world someday. Susan 渴望有一天能环游世界 Someday 指的就是将来有一天下一个单字 pause 名词停顿暂停 After a brief pause, Ivy continued her speech. 在短暂的停顿后 Ivy 继续了她的演讲下一个单字 drop 动词丢下扔下 Zach dropped his keys on the ground. Zach 把钥匙掉在地上了最后一个单字 jump 动词跳跃 The dog jumped over the fence. 那只狗跳过篱笆接着我们来看重点文法第一个 A is much 加上形容词比较级加上 than B A 比 B 怎样多了这是形容词比较级的用法可以用 much, a lot 等字词来强调程度哦我们来看看这个例句 This book is much more interesting than that one. 这本书比那本有趣多了。下一个文法 make up one's mind. 某人下定决心，这是一个固定用法。mind 在这里表示意见、想法。我们来看看这个例句 Ben finally made up his mind to move to another city. Ben 终于下定决心搬到另一个城市。最后一个文法Somebody finds oneself in place. 某人发现自己身处某地，用来描述无意间或意料之外的情境。介系词可以依照地点来做变化。我们来看看这个例句。When Nelson opened his eyes, he found himself in a beautiful garden. Nelson 张开眼睛时，发现自己在一座美丽的花园里。以上就是这一课的重点单词跟文法，回去记得复习哦。我们下一课再见，拜拜。
Hey, Winnie, I just wanted to say thanks for covering my shift the other day.
Oh, no sweat.
It's time for translations, and the topic is ways to reply to thanks, all right? So the first one is 小意思. How would you say that in English? 小意思.小意思.
You are welcome.
Yeah, sure, but even smaller.
I want to say a piece of cake. No. No problem.
Yes, okay, no problem. Or it's nothing, okay? What about this? 不足以挂齿. 不足以挂齿.
There's nothing to thank me about.
It doesn't fulfill your expectation, is it?
It's similar to the first one.
Yeah.
I really appreciate it. Thank you so much. Don't.
No worries. Is it?
Similar.
To say
No
so.
idea.
Oh, okay. Don't mention it.
Yeah.
Don't mention it. Okay.
But that one was hard. What did we learn today?
Today we learned some different ways to reply to thanks. The first one is no sweat. The verb sweat means moisture coming through the pores of the skin after something that is reacting to heat. And no sweat is a casual phrase that we use. It's to tell someone that what you've done is easy or you didn't have to go out of your way to do something. So they don't have to worry about it. Other ways of saying this could be don't sweat it or don't worry about it. Our next one is don't mention it. In the phrase, the word mention is a verb, and it means to bring up or talk about something. So the phrase, don't mention it, has the meaning of you're welcome, because you're telling the other person they don't need to talk about it or they don't need to bring it up, so it's not a big deal. That's all we have for translations today. KiWi later.